let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are this morning. And I have with me in the studio journalist Charles Ideho, as well as Cyril Abaku, senior researcher at TVC News. It's nice to have you both in the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Right, let's begin with Daily Trust. Daily Trust is where we start from this morning, and it says controversy over armored vehicles seized in Adamawa. There's a lot of controversy over this the past few days, actually. All right, from there, let's go to the Daily Times. Daily Times says loan defaulters to forfeit deposits in other banks, as the Bankers Committee is revealing this, and that should start in January 2020. New directive will boost consumer credit, others to honest loaners. CBN is saying this. An implementation of initiative may hike industry's credit growth to 1 trillion naira. Okay. We'll wait to see how that pans out, certainly. From the Daily Times, let's go to the blueprint now. The blueprint is where we go next. And presidency is saying why Buhari can't save suspected fraudsters in the U.S. And insists that justice must take its course and mulls executive order to check recurrence of this trend. Okay, this is a fallout of the over or close to 80 Nigerians that were arrested, amongst other people, by the FBI recently. Let's go now to the News Direct. News Direct says $1.6 billion Lagos Ibadan standard gauge funding slowed down pace of work. Amechi is saying that it's a funding slowed down pace of work. We have been Nigerians have been looking, and even especially Lagosians have been expecting this quite a while. It's been on the news. All right, gentlemen, a lot of from the story on the armored tank that the Daily Trust put on their headline actually is a controversy that a lot of people are seeing from different perspectives and different window to see mine-resistant armored vehicles in the territory that were not ordered or pre-ordered by the Nigerian army or military calls for a lot of concern. Cyril, let me start with you on this.
Of course it does. Before I go into that discussion, I would like to say that interception is one of the miracles that can happen when agencies work in harmony.
You call it a miracle?
No, of course, yes. The DSS was involved, and you can see how immediately the military, the soldiers intercepted the vehicles. They passed it on to the
customs.
Yes, to customs. And I can tell you that serious investigations have been underway since on Saturday. We cannot be fighting insurgency in the northeast and certain criminal elements, be they countries, be they governments, be they international organizations, be they local organizations, will be working directly to undermine our efforts, in dealing with bandits, in dealing with terrorists, in dealing with all sorts of groups that you can't even, sometimes attacks are taking place, you can't even understand what's going on. Adamawa State, for instance, is a place where some gains have been made. As a matter of fact, I remember that our reporter in Yola was so happy to be telling us some weeks ago that for the first time people celebrated Salah without a single bomb blast. So if you follow the news, some days ago also, refugees in Cameroon were returning
back voluntarily.
Yes, voluntarily. Why? And then again, that the Michika Madagali bridge issue and so on. The fact is that we cannot, just when we are trying to make a U-turn in beginning to change the narrative of what's going on there, we are having that capacity of military vehicles. I'm not sure we can produce it here. Okay. And those are the kind of things that those that can produce them will tell if you went to buy, they will say, give us another 20 years to make for you. And yet we sit on our soil, being trafficked illegally.
Yeah, Charles, the point there is, from the reports we got, when the news went round, locals were happy that some of the vehicles and equipment that the government ordered had arrived. Meanwhile, the story changed eventually.
Exactly. But it does tell you how porous our borders are. Because there were also reports that those armored vehicles were meant for Cameroon, that they were just taking a route in Nigeria, through Nigeria, to also get to Cameroon.
Illegally?
What they are meant for, we know none. Of course, the investigation is still ongoing, as I said. But I think we must go the whole hog if there are Nigerian accomplices, those need to be ascertained and also determine who they are, and any culprit brought to book, so that it will serve as a deterrent. Because if you, as Siri has said, if you now either deliberately or indeliberately want to work to undermine the security challenge we're having, and then what government is putting in place for us to be able to get out of where we are now, and then you are now undermining that, then the government should not take it lightly. Look at what people were happy that, of course, that they were going to have this document to show up the security issue, but it was not meant for us, because, and that's to tell us, as the authorities are working with the custom and all of them, intelligence relations, I said, the one that we need to also look at, being our side letter, is the immigration. Okay? Question is that how did they have this free will movement from one point to another until they got to a point where they were discovered? So wherever they were coming from, they entered into Nigerian soil through some routes. So who are supposed to man those? So we need to also look at how we can strengthen this interagency relationship, so that some of these things are their handed, then they now start getting the baton handed over from one point to the next.
It calls for very serious concern, Siri, when it comes to the issue of how porous the borders of Nigeria is, in fact, roundabout.
It's about 1,400.
Yes,
about
Nigeria is a very
borders.
large country,
Yes.
so we know how challenging it can be. But the point there is, over the years, we are almost 60 years old as a country, that if we want to see how we can ensure that the radius, the whole of Nigeria is covered either by a fence or by whatever means, or by whatever it is. Because if there is an invasion of military equipment and it wasn't discovered until it gets to an extent, I wonder how disturbing that is.
No, and that is why I said this discovery is a miracle. This interception is a miracle.
I see why you call it a miracle.
Because others could have happened.
Exactly. And look, let's not say could have happened. Let's even say have been happening. Or
yes,
may
have been happening.
May have been happening. Perhaps on a larger scale, perhaps on a lesser scale. But the fact is that what you do is that when you, in the security circles, if you make a catch, you use it as a bait or as a means to catching even more. We need to do that. Now, the fact is that our brothers may be porous, but do you know that right from the colonial times up until today, anytime Nigeria has looked for a serious offender, they have got him. As far as it's Nigeria, how do you, whether from murder to theft, as far as the state is looking for you, they will get you. And this is what brings to the issue of the fact that, you see, over time, if not for compromise, anywhere a military operation is not gaining as much traction as it should, there could be other factors responsible, but one of them could and almost always is the fact that there are bad eggs in
the system.
So if we find a way to deal with that, if we need to change the paradigm in terms of motivation, if we need to change the paradigm in terms of dealing with offenders, whatever it is that we need to do. For instance, that same military battalion, I think had been, what's his name? Why do you mean was in Taraba, right?
Yes.
And this one happened in Adamawa. But you know that Taraba and Adamawa have a single customs control unit. They share a lot in terms of security. And so that particular corridor must now be looked into even more thoroughly. Commend those who have done this good job, motivate them more, and then ensure that, you consolidate on this game.
And you tighten some of these
things. Because
exactly.
Nigerian, the people in Michika, Madagascar, in that for the locals, to Cameroon and to Nigeria is like one thing.
It's free. Yes.
So people shouldn't be capitalizing on that.
That's very true. You won't know the difference. They're
you won't know the difference.
They're brothers, they're sisters.
It's like they are married, they live together.
It's like Nigeria and Benin Republic.
Semes only has a little bit of before you can get it, it's too bit tight. But when you get to Duroko, Igolo, where they call it
different thing entirely.
You can go and buy matches and come back again.
And so, Mike, we should be looking to have more assets on ground.
Yes.
We should be looking to have more civilian assets because, nobody would be foolish enough to be moving sensitive equipment if you saw somebody dress in military fatigue, for instance. And so you need to get more people on the ground, people who don't look to be what they really are. And then they become your eyes, they become your ears, they become your nose on the ground.
But ultimately, this tells us that when the security agencies really want to work, there is nothing under the sun that will stop them.
Yeah, but I said it because but there are people who are profiting from the crisis. Those are the people who are upstairs. So they are the ones who give the orders to the
upstairs. Is it first floor?
No, when I mean upstairs, in the manner of
Secretariat complex.
In the manner of speaking. So, but if those if sometimes those ones the rank and file, they want to actually work. Sometimes they can be healthy. So, no, this one we will do before the thing gets upstairs. I mean, the thing has come to the open. So then the locals, we also have to look at how the locals can also provide useful information.
Seriously,
because the locals they also see. So, but in most cases, when they see, they are afraid that if they yield such information to them, it may harm them. But if we assure the locals that they are protected, I'm telling you, they are going to be yielding information that will be very, very useful.
But I think that's where it's still lacking. That engagement between the locals and the security agencies.
Now you see, those vehicles were warehoused somewhere. We don't know for how long. They were warehoused. As far as something that is not ours, something of that nature was somewhere. It was a serious national security breach. In the negotiations, whatever that will be, because I mean, it takes a higher to have this kind of thing in a country with lower. Those things shouldn't be given out.
Just
anyway,
like that, no.
They've become ours. They must be confiscated. And become ours. And
but if you look at the equipment, they look like, because when it comes to mine-resistant equipment, heavy equipment like that, they look like either from the United States or Russia or China.
Yes,
they're the only ones that can make, or Ukraine, exactly.
You know, when the Nigerian army produced its own MRAP, it was big news.
Yeah.
And which brings me to this, to the fact that, Mike, no country fights any war, or no country moves from the swamps to the stars without incorporating critically what they call what sociologists call, I think, the scientific technical intelligentsia. Your experts, your scientists, your technologists, people who sit down to assist you in design, because these things you're seeing, you know, how do you, for instance, why now? So like it's big news because this is strange. But in the US, because they produce these things, maybe it could have been easier for them to detect. Maybe you know, for them they would have been able to more easily evaluate what that is and where it could have come from. But up until now, no preliminary statement. And so maybe they're still studying what it's all about. What's all about. We need to up our game in that regard. The scientists that must be brought into the mix, into the mainstream of our brother.
Are you referring the scientists? Sorry, the scientists you're talking about, the American or the Nigerian?
Local.
Oh, okay.
Local.
Okay.
So because we can do it.
Let me bring it tight, and that one too is that the question is you have to also make a conjecture. How long were those things within
the model?
And then who were keeping eye on them? Were they also compromised? Did money exchange hands and so on? You must look at
that.
How many people in Nigeria, for instance, just hold on, within the army, for instance, you know, have the capacity to drive such a vehicle?
Yeah, exactly. You know, manpower.
So you need such intelligence to know.
Expertise.
Yes, sure.
You know?
No problem. We have to leave you here now. It's been a good one. Thank you very much, Cyril Abaku, for coming on the program. Thank you, Charles Ideho, for coming as well. Thank you.
Let's dive straight into the papers now. With me to review the lead stories in the papers this morning is journalist Charles Ideho and senior researcher here at TVC News. That's Cyril Abaku. Good morning. I was almost stumbling.
Senior Siri.
I'm not a senior citizen.
Senior citizen Siri.
Cyril, good morning. Thank you so much, Charles, also for joining us on the program this morning. Okay, let's check out the papers. We've already had a bit of a heated discussion here just before the segment was beginning now. But looking at Daily Trust, the top story is controversy over armored vehicles seized in Adamawa State. All right, that is also eliciting a lot of reactions now. Daily Times is towing a different line. Loan defaulters to forfeit deposits in other banks. Bankers Committee says so. New directive will boost consumer credit. Others to honest loaners. That's from CBN. Now, implementation of initiative may hike industry's credit growth to 1 trillion naira. Still on the Daily Times there. For Blueprint, So the presidency is speaking out on why President Buhari cannot save suspected fraudsters in the U.S. Insists justice must take its course. Molds executive order to check reoccurrence. We'll discuss that in a bit. Finally, at this point now is News Direct, which reads $1.6 billion Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge funding slows down pace of work. This from the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi. So, gentlemen, let's take this blueprint story now head on. Presidency while Buhari cannot save suspected fraudsters in the U.S. Charles, did you see that at any point? Why this twist?
No, were there even plans for the president to save them? That's the question you need to ask. Were there plans in place or being mooted that the president should save them? Save them for what? Because when you look at, even as you speak, our government is doing all it can to ensure that we have good, our image is rated over above what it is as it is. Some of us who have the privilege to travel abroad, when you get in there, you line up at the point of entry. Once you have that green passport, you are separated from the rest. Even people from Gabon, they are allowed to get in before you. I mean, what's causing that is because of the nefarious activities of these young men. Look, I am telling you that making money from the internet can be done legitimately. So this young boy, they can put their internet to use productively. Not to now, you know, I was saying it before we came on air, that they had to, they dupe a pensioner, octogenarian pensioner, somebody in his 80s, somebody who is suffering. They took up to close to how many thousands of dollars they took to. I mean, you expect the president to save such people, but I think I believe that what the government should do, we need to do is that since they have been arrested, but what we need to insist on is that let proper process be done. The investigation must take its course. Those who are found not to be guilty should be freed. But those who have been found to be culpable, the full weight of those should be brought about. So it can serve a different. People will now begin to know here back home that you can commit crime, but you know that's what they call the long arm of the law. It can catch up with you then. They begin to de-emphasize the issue of that crime. Crime does not pay. So I think that's exactly what government should be doing about it. And
these are, alleged heinous crimes. Now, look at the economic impact now, $1.1
billion US dollars.
Right.
In the space of 6
Said
months.
to be in the wrong hands now. Of course, still allegations. But with this consideration of an executive order to check reoccurrence, is that the way to go for the government?
Kemi, I would say with every sense of responsibility that the FBI is not like the EFCC that will charge somebody to a court and out of 500 count charges, they will strike out for 499.
And then lose sometimes.
They have done the investigation. They've done their homework. I can tell you that before this whole thing came to the public knowledge, 14,000
before it was declassified.
Yes, 14,000 complaints had been filed. And so this is massive. This is elephant size. This is not just an economic, this is economic sabotage. If people can make a way, $1.1 billion is no chicken change. That is a sensible chunk of even the Nigerian budget. That's the amount of money that countries borrow from other countries or from even international institutions. And so the question is this: the attempt, because you can see now that these people have friends in all kinds of places. You saw
about 10 countries.
Yeah, no. One of them is Francis Kaimon's. You saw the picture.
Absolutely.
It was being discussed on international media. One of them was with the governor in the southeast, and the man said, no, well,
but you're saying anyway. One of them
of course. Now, and more may even come out. You see that they have friends in high places.
Yes.
No, but this may not be in Francis Kaimon's case. Now, of course, we've seen his reaction. He said, "Okay, this is an childhood friend."
It is not to insinuate,
right,
that they were acting in connivance with this person.
Absolutely.
But what you can see that they are not small fry people. No, they are not.
And like the U.S. government claims, these people also frequent Nigeria a lot.
Those pictures were not taken in 1980 something, 1970 something. In fact, one of them was was appointed to the governorship inauguration committee of Governor Emeka Ihedioha. And he said, look, the only reason I brought this guy was
from Imo.
As at that time, he was from Imo, he has done a lot of empowerment projects.
Yeah, exactly.
He had no case on his neck. We didn't know that he was a criminal. You know?
I disowned him already.
So, but let us even put all of this aside. So you can see that these are people who are not, they're not, like he said,
they're not small fries.
They're not small fries.
Yes.
But the issue is this. The first thing we must correct is that the attempt by a small clique to stereotype or give a bad name to those of us who are Nigerian youth must be rejected. In Nigeria, we have not perceived all Americans to be mass murderers and mass shooters. And so to think that all Nigerians are fraudsters is not correct in any way. That is one. Number two is the fact that, Kemi, I may be misunderstood for saying this when I say this, but let me quickly give you a quick history. After World War II ended, the Americans went to Germany. They said all the scientists and all those that were working for Hitler should be prosecuted. When they saw the extent of Hitler's science, they brought the scientists to Germany. It was one of those men that took America to space. The kind of sophistication and intellect that goes into this level of fraud.
I think we should use them positively.
While we are punishing the perpetrators, I think somebody needs to sit down to study the method. I wish that these men could become Nigeria's Mark Zuckerberg. I wish that these men could have become the founders of Instagram, because you find that we have a population of youth, that have energy and intellect to do massive things,
and creativity,
but they are using this thing in the wrong way. Do
yeah.
we have a program or project that can see them channeling this energy into something positive? Because the fact, I wonder if Mark Zuckerberg had been in Nigeria, would he have founded Facebook, or he would have been doing something else? I think that a country where the best brains, or let's say the celebrities, are always musicians, writers, footballers, and so on.
I get your point. I get your point.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. But then, there are some other concerns now. Some are also saying, which we've seen some of these people confessing, that they are also working in tandem with the greed of some.
With the greed of some.
With the greed of some.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you see, Siri, you can't successfully. Okay, let me say it this way. Criminalities cannot be successfully perpetrated if there is no somebody like what they call the Mugu here in Nigeria, or Maga.
But is it applicable in all scenarios of this online
let me tell you,
transactions?
Hold on.
I mean, you mentioned a pensioner now. Would a pensioner be greedy, for example?
If you promise a pensioner that you want to generate his fund, double his funds, I mean, we say there's something about the psychology of the human spirit that you want somebody to just sit down and say, okay, your 10,000 can turn to 100,000 without doing anything. I mean, he will say, oh, and then maybe they try it with somebody and it works. What about the wonder banks in Benin that killed a lot of people because people dropping money? Okay, what about the MMM and Loom? Are people not still falling into it?
There are so many of them.
So is the psychology of the human mind to want to make more money than no? I mean, beyond what they're supposed. So that's exactly even America, they're not even exaggerated because it's a human factor.
What about the love affairs now?
What
about, because the tactics are endless. The tactics are endless. So how do you leverage on the intellect, on the brilliance of these people?
No, we can channel it to positive use. Positive, as Syria said. Honestly.
Rather interestingly and dramatically again, you see, the English word dupe does not define the person, the criminal.
No, it's this. Yeah,
the dupe is the victim.
Yeah, the victim, yes.
So that one you're talking about, the greed factor. There's there's an element of it, but the law prevents the exploitation of that greed.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're looking at. These young men, don't get me wrong, they should be able to face the full wrath of the law. But Nigeria is losing something. We are caving down by the day. How can we ensure that the abundant, because what we have is not even the oil wells in my village or the gold mines in Zamfara. What Nigeria has as its most invaluable asset is the human resource, and then that human resource is stocked up in youth.
But
how can we exploit this energy for something positive?
The answer to that, Siri, might not be far from the fact is that now the government knows that this youth that we've got, they have this intellect, okay, high level of intellect. What we need to do is that we need to start asking Nigerians who are legitimately doing what they're doing over there, who are in high tech, bring them back here. If need be, like the likes of Zuckerberg, we can bring them, and then they can begin to teach the youth how to maximize this talent they have and put them in productive use legitimately.
Okay. $1.1 billion in 6 months. That's I can't.
I mean,
just see what that can do to an economy.
And please, I also want to,
side.
also pull the caveat that look, this may just be one that we have even found.
Yes, of course.
What about the uncovered schemes?
Uncovered schemes, exactly.
Gentlemen, I mean, of course, these are really, deep issues, deep issues, international issues also. Well, the conversation will definitely continue, but I'm afraid we've run out of time here. Charles Idaho, Cyril Abaku, thank you both for your contribution.
Thank you.
Let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are in the country. I have with me in the studio Charles Idaho and Cyril Abaku, both journalists, and we'll be doing justice to this. Nice to see you both.
Thank you, Mike.
Good. Let's start from Daily Trust. Daily Trust is where we begin. Controversy over armored vehicles seized in Adamawa. Okay, that's what you see on the front page of the Daily Trust. Now, Daily Times says loan defaulters to forfeit deposits in other banks. Bankers Committee is shedding light on this. A new directive will boost consumer credit, others to honest loaners. That's CBN. An implementation of initiative may hike industry's credit growth to 1 trillion naira. Okay, that's what you see on the Daily Times. Blueprint is where we go next now. The presidency is explaining why Buhari can't save suspected fraudsters in the U.S. Insists justice must take its course. Mull's executive order to check recurrence of this. Okay, that's what's on the blueprint. Now, News Direct, which is the last one now. It says 1.6 billion naira Lagos Ibadan standard gauge funding slowed down pace of work. Amechi, the Minister of Transport, is explaining this. And gentlemen, I think this is where we start. Paucity of funds. A lot of Nigerians who are watchers say that it seems the government has spread itself a little lean, trying to, touch this, touch this, touch this, touch this. At the end of the day, not having enough to, take care of everything. So instead, it would have been better to, put funds in this, finish, and then move to the other one. So okay, I was able to complete this and I was able to complete that. The second Niger Bridge is ongoing. At least we've seen, I've been to that area and I've seen the work is ongoing. And then the standard gauge has also been going around too. Others have talked about, in fact, commended the government when it comes to the Abuja-Kaduna rail, which is functional and so on. But the minister said there's paucity of funds, which certainly one would say, well, of course, that's part of the thing.
What you said earlier, you're not a politician. That's why you're talking like that.
Oh, okay.
Because when you say, okay, just carry one through,
right.
Politicians will not do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they want to have their hands everywhere.
Okay.
So that there's this
the semblance of the fact that we are working.
Doing everything.
I see.
So that's what usually happens when leaders are doing that. They want, on this sector, we're
doing something.
On this sector, we'll be fair.
Monies have been released.
Exactly,
the monies have been released.
But at the end of the day, it may not work the way we are. But in most cases, what causes this paucity of funds? For instance, what the Chinese agreement we have, we're supposed to have given out what they call this amount of money was supposed to, I've forgotten the name they call it now, was supposed to push out first.
Is it meant to be a counterpart fund?
A counterpart fund, good. I was looking for that word, exactly. So in most cases, you see that government defaults in that aspect. The Chinese government or the Chinese on their part, I've seen even this morning when I was coming here, I saw the work ongoing on the Lagos Ibadan, the Agege Aziz. Work is actually going on that. So I think what the government needs to do is, as you said, maybe they have to borrow from you. Let's see if we can carry this salary gauge. Let's show the people this is what we can do. I mean, for 1 year, then you cannot move to the next. When you have done that to about 80% or 70%, because if we are going to be doing that for 4 years is not a long time.
Exactly. 4 years. 4 years is a short time.
Political calendar, 4 years very short. Before you know, it's only 4 years, and then you'll be talking about okay, what we couldn't do right and what we couldn't do.
All right, Cyril, what do you make? What do you actually make of this? Because the point there is, actually, the government is doing a lot, but when it comes to engaging with Nigerians, to let them know this is how far we're going and this is what we are about, this is what we're doing so far. Not so many Nigerians are seeing what the government is doing, but the government is actually doing so well.
Well, let me quickly begin from that point of people are not seeing what, you know, many times we could assume that people need so and so items on the table. But if you gather data, the way the Rwandan government invests in data so massively, and if you'll excuse the term, so crazily, as if their life depended on data, you will find that there could be missing gaps on how you should be engaging with them. If, like I would say, if I have constant power in my house for upwards of 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, a month, I will be jolted to believe that something has changed. That's the first place you deal with me as a person.
Yeah.
And so you need to ask yourself, what is the most direct and most immediate way to engage with people to know that government is doing something? So spreading yourself thin may not entirely be the solution. But having said that, and again, like Charles rightly pointed out, that one serves political purposes. But the other point is that, where did we miss it in this particular project? So we can go back to the template, to the blueprint. Who was supposed to release which money? Was it released? Is the money in the pipeline? Or was it not even released in the first place?
The time limit?
The time limit. So let's go back. It's not rocket science. If you enter into an agreement with a third party or with a second party, whatever the case is, and there's a problem, let's go back to where we started from and what the issues are. Because in the end, the gauge doesn't benefit the Chinese. This thing is supposed to be something for our own internal and domestic.
There has been a talk of a speed rail. We're still talking about light rail and
it's not locomotive. We're still talking about locomotive.
The point there is, we know the kind of trains we had in the 80s and in the 90s, and then eventually rail services went down somewhere, and then it's coming back again. Now that it's coming back, Nigerians expect to see something really like
different.
Speed
yes,
train.
Exactly. But incidentally, we may know what is being done now is not speed as for that. What is wider. I've seen the tracks myself, so the tracks appear to be more standard and more modern than what you have. So, but it's still going to be a locomotive. It's going to be driven by
it's
locomotive.
Still not the speed rail.
It's not the speed rail.
So one would have expected that from between Lagos and Calabar,
which is why
Sokoto and Maiduguri.
Which is why I personally quarrel with Lagos State government. If you look at the corridor that Oshodi that empties into Songo, that corridor, they are wasting a lot of land there. I'm building it for BROT, that median. That could work for what they call the metro. Because, for instance, if you look at if you engage if you use that corridor for metro, I mean one coach can ferry up to about 100 passengers. Okay, let's say you are using 4 coaches. That's 400. Okay, then the buses you have, one of them will carry 18. So how many buses will carry 400 passengers?
But on the other hand, I was speaking with a development economist at the time, and he said that the point there is, all of these demarcations you see as BRT lanes is a good way to demarcate the road. In the next maybe 10, 15, 20 years, they are going to metamorphose into the real tracks.
If you are sure they have that in the pipeline. No. But going back to the federal government, for instance, so what they are doing now is that even if it is locomotive, and as I said, I have seen that it's wider, it's more standard by my estimation, because the rail tracks are running along each other, so you can compare. So, but let them finish it. Let it work. If it works, of course, it's going to reduce the burden upon the roads that we have as we speak.
All right. If we talk about the issue of impact on the economy, on the whole, on the general, a lot of Nigerians have been calling for real service, real service. How much of impact will they have, really, Cyril?
No, already, how much of impact is it already having? You see what we have at the Papa Gridlock, for instance, is part of the neglect. And this is to imagine that, is to even put it against the backdrop of the travesty that has become that whole corridor. because it was designed originally. You bring in the goods, then the rail system takes it out. But we've sold those lands to private people.
And they've built houses on them.
And then we now flood the whole place with, can we decongest some of these cities?
Yes,
the NP announced a 10% cut for people who bring in goods, certain level of goods in to Warri, Port Harcourt, and so on. That's not far-reaching. Where we are today, let's do what the Chinese have done. Can we say 50% reduction in tax? So that you can shift attention significantly away.
But can there be a direct policy on that to say, okay, all goods going to a certain destination go to Calabar
all
Port,
what you say, no. Just give, in a free market economy, there's an extent to which you can regulate.
But Nigeria is not absolutely or exclusively a free market economy.
Well, but who says we cannot be? Because the Constitution, again, with all of its contradictions, provides for a free market economy. Some governments, I know for a fact that President Buhari, in his personal orientation, is not so amenable to the free market system.
That's right.
Okay,
So
and he hasn't hidden it at all. But the fact is that in Nigeria of 2019, we can make certain things count. How can we make sure that, you see, the rail system, Mike, let me even conclude. The reason why the rails are grounded is lack of political will. There are principalities and powers who have trucks, Mike, who have trucks on the road.
Okay.
And for as long as their trucks are in use,
then the
your rails should remain useless.
If the rail work, then you call them out of the business.
Can we move against this behemoth? That is the question.
You call them principalities.
Of course, that's what they are.
In high places.
Yes, in high places.
In high places.
Yes.
Upstairs there.
Yes.
All right. First floor, second floor. All right, let's leave it here now. But we've had rail service before, efficient rail service in this country. And it
was
worked. I
brilliant.
remember taking train somewhere in Kaduna in the 80s. Beautiful. But we thank you very much for coming. Cyril Abaku, thank you very much. And Charles Udeho, thank you very much.
Thank you.